In late spring, the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls held a hearing in Whitehorse, part of its commitment to give family members a safe place in which to tell their stories.
We identified Mary through our family pictures with the morgue pictures. At least we knew where she ended up.
I grew up an only child, often wondering why my mother was not around.
Some 1,200 Indigenous women and girls have been murdered or gone missing since 1980. And for their families, this national inquiry was a hard-won victory.
I'm her voice. She can't speak for herself anymore. So I want them to know what the effects and what happens.
Yet 9 months into a 28-month process, the Whitehorse event was just the first set of hearings, leading to a widely held concern.
This is a process that no one should be rushing. We need to ensure this is done properly.
We're going to need some more time to get our work done in the way that we need to do it.
Great Spirit.
There were much deeper concerns than that. Advocacy groups and some families were critical of the way the inquiry was being run.
Many of their criticisms have centered around lack of communication, lack of information, lack of supports to attend any of these events, and a real lack of voice in all of this.
Around the time of those first hearings in Whitehorse, a respected former First Nations leader and father of the current Justice Minister let loose on social media. This wasn't just a communications issue. The inquiry was facing a crisis of legitimacy. The federal government believed the Whitehorse hearings might have helped quell those concerns.
Well, I think that people felt it turned a corner at Whitehorse.
Yes.
I think that the fact that the families felt listened to and that there seemed to be a real empathetic approach.
But over the summer, things took a turn for the worse. The biggest blow came in mid-July when one of the 5 commissioners did in fact quit. Marilyn Poitras said she could no longer serve the process the way it was designed.
My main concern is that this commission is going down a tried road. We've been studied, we've been researched, we've gone and looked at Indians and half-breeds and Inuit people for a long time to see what's the problem. You tell us your sad story and we'll figure out what to do with you, and we're headed down that same path. And if it worked, we would all be so fixed and healthy by now.
I think that resignation is extremely significant. It's saying this isn't just a staff issue. You know, we're not just having some growing pains in terms of people working for the commission, that there are fundamental and core flaws with the inquiry such that she didn't want to be affiliated with it anymore. She didn't want to cause more harm to the families.
After this, the calls for the lead commissioner to resign grew louder.
I have no intention of resigning. This is important work that we've already started, that we have planned for the future, and we intend to continue for the sake of the families and survivors.
The pressure intensified. In late July, the Assembly of First Nations voted on a measure demanding resignations of the remaining commissioners.
You failed in communications. You failed to build trust. You failed to build relationships with families.
But most First Nations leaders voted against that so-called hard reset.
More than 6% is not in favor.
And in favor of staying the course.
That inquiry is occupied by Indigenous commissioners, and I don't think we should be calling on the federal government to fix it.
Some people have some concerns around a reset of the inquiry. Some of the families in the north are worried that maybe their testimony will be deleted, or maybe there'll be no inquiry at all.
In August, inquiry leaders posted a reset document of their own, promising to work with families on the issues that were causing friction. And they stressed the inquiry was looking into the critical issue of policing.
I think that the leadership has shown a blatant disregard for the reality by pretending that everything is still okay. And it's clearly not okay.
For those who despair for the fate of the inquiry, recent history may offer some hope.
We have excellent precedent, and you'll recall that one didn't get started off so well either.
The well-received Residential Schools Truth and Reconciliation Commission did call for a reset before finding its footing.
And I am grateful that there are things that are going to be done about this now.
Late last month, during a cabinet shuffle, Prime Minister Trudeau's government split the Indigenous Affairs portfolio into 2 departments. Trudeau promised it won't impact the inquiry.
The Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls inquiry is actually the responsibility of the Prime Minister's office, the Privy Council office, and it remains.